let's hop over. We've got another Infect player on camera. I don't know who invited this scumbag onto camera, but no. So Andrew Burns, really good player, one of our Death Shadow aficionados, if you will. He'd been running different variants of Death Shadow pretty much all of Season 7. Mainly running the Traverse style of list. Likes that quite a bit, so going to be rocking the Jun style. Scumbag, question mark. I always make that joke because my co-caster's not here. Brett always likes to joke that Infect players are scumbags. For those that do not know, the real Nan Man is Nan Johnson. That's me. So that's why I like to joke and kind of do that. Since Brett, our co-host, or Farmers Are in Ours, not here to give me a hard time, I can give myself a little bit of a hard time. So with regionals coming up, I had been playing a different list up until, like, pretty much all of Season 7. I played Grixis Death Shadow, and for the last, like, two and a half months, maybe 3 months now, I've been playing Grixis Death Shadow. But with regionals coming up, I wanted to play a deck that I just know the matchups and I know it in and out, right? And that's Infect. Like, I had been playing very well with the list tonight. Both Andrew and I are the two undefeated players in it. It says round 4. It's technically the 5th round of the tournament, so we were both undefeated. Decided to play it out in the final round instead of draw. I was fine with it because I was going to be there recording the match anyway. Might as well play it out, and this gets me some more chance to practice. I did not know that Andrew had switched away from his Death Shadow list. All right, I knew that he was on. He had been playing Death Shadow for most of the previous season, most of the time he's been playing. So I said, you know what? Let's sit here and battle it out. It'll be fun. That's a good point SGT is making, is he's found that Grixis Death Shadow to be weakened heavily since Bloodbraid Elf was unbanned. There's a lot more bolts running around, and the Grixis has a hard time outvaluing a Jun list, even without Bloodbraid Elf. And that's true. Like, you'll see that a lot, is that Jun is just a powerful deck. It's just pure value. And, you know, the Goys can get pretty out of hand, and just the amount of removal spells, it gets a little dicey. So back on Infect, trying it out. This is basically my practice to get ready for regionals, which is coming up, which we'll be traveling to Baltimore to be able to compete in that. And I will be bringing Infect, so I figure why not get some practice in. I know the deck in and out very well, that it's easier for me to be able to sit here and understand the lines of play. Where Grixis, I am starting to understand the lines of play. I'm making some good plays here, but just some of the sideboard stuff I still need help with, and there's just other stuff with the list that I just don't feel as comfortable in particular matchups. Where Infect is a list, it's tweaked over the years, especially with bannings and stuff like that, but it's one of the lists that I've been able to make day 2 at a GP with. You know, I've been able to get 10th at a Classic with it. Like, I understand the deck. So I'm going to do my best. Jund is a very difficult matchup. Like, it's up there as one of the toughest matchups to have to play as Infect. Like, the control lists are tough to deal with, but they have less threats often, so you can kind of grind it out, and it can be longer, grindier games, but you might be able to get the victory in the end. Jund is a very difficult one. It's like, you know, 40-60 in favor of Jun with that 60%, and that's like on a good day if you're hitting some good stuff. Like, if you can get in there early, sometimes they try to strip away one of your cards, but you just have that turn 2, turn 3, so you can get those victories. But the amount of disruption, the amount of removal available, it's a very tough deck to kind of try to combat, and you sometimes have to play a lot more reserved with Infect in this matchup to hold up those protection spells. So we see Raging Ravine coming down for Andrew, and he's going to pass. And I'm starting out with going to 18, this Breeding Pool, followed off with the Noble Hierarch. So seeing the Raging Ravine, that's already giving that kind of light bulb in your head there. Okay, this is not a Death Shadow list, right? This is not. This is looking like a Jund. What style of Jund is he playing? You know, how are things going to be working out in this sort of matchup? What should I be kind of worried about? Verdant Catacomb is going to come down for Andrew here, and now he's kind of in the tank about, okay, do I kill the bird? How do I proceed from here? And yeah, it looks like he's going to be bolting down the Noble and passes after that. Which again, we talked about that last round of having that early creature out there to kind of pull removal spells. And here's the Glistener Elf to follow it up. And Andrew's going to be fetching away. Shotgun could even be... nope, just says, I'll go to 19. I don't need to worry too much about Revolt triggers or anything like that. I just need to start getting my mana online here. Casually reveal Lily too. Yeah, I mean, he's one step closer to being able to cast Lily. Just needs another black source, and Lily's online, ready to go. Oh, here's this Overgrown. He says, oh, alright, I'm going to go to 17, and here's my Liliana of the Veil. And he says, hey, I'd like to Edict. We're going to make you sack a creature. And so I'm going to drop down to 17 life. It is weird to commentate a match that I have played, yes. And that's one of the reasons why we don't usually, like Brett and I try to avoid being on camera most of the time. It's easier when I have my co-host and co-caster here because he can take over a little bit and I can just sort of answer a lot more questions that he might ask me about reasoning behind it. You know, I try to approach it almost as if I am just commentating anyone else, and it's less about just commentating me and more of commentating just another Infect player. But sometimes I slip up and, you know, refer to it as me or what I did and what I was thinking at that time. So it's weird. At first it was very weird because we used to have player cams and you could see our reactions and stuff like that. But so kill off Lily, and then we get followed up with Tarmogoyf. And luckily we have a Tarmogoyf able to kind of say, hey, there's so much in the graveyard right now, and now that you threw away that Planeswalker, I'm feeling pretty good about having a lot in the way to kind of get a nice threat. So here's Distortion Strike coming down, giving Glistener Elf +1/+0 unblockable this turn. Coming across for 2. It's debate whether or not to push for more damage. You see that he still has that 1 land untapped, so it's like, okay, is it worth it to try to overcommit? I know that I had at least to Become Immense. I think there was a Vines in hand there. And so now we're going to see the 4 damage get swung on back, dropping me down to 13. But now again, he's got a lot of lands available. Second Goyf's going to be hitting the battlefield here, so both sitting at 4/5. Distortion Strike going to get rebound casted onto the elf, giving him +1/+0 unblockable. Draw into another elf. But again, it's that awkward stage where he's got 2 mana, could have double removal spell. If I overcommit here, could lose my creature, lose 2 very important spells like a Become Immense and a Vines, things like that. So debating through whether it's worth it to try to push for damage. I think at this point, my only hesitation here of why I'm not like overcommitting like immediately, like just turn things sideways, is, you know, he's got 2 4/5s on the battlefield here, all right, and then if he draws a land, he activates Raging Ravine and swings out, and I'm basically down to 1 life, right? If I play it a little bit safer, I might be able to, you know, wait a little bit longer. So pushing for 2 right now. Groundswell, no landfall. But again, just filling up the graveyard a little bit here. And Andrew is a good player where he's not going to overcommit and just try to throw removal spells during combat. If you're playing against Infect, you want to try to wait, if you can, and not throw the removal spells during combat, because that's when the Infect players love it and they just, you know, oh, okay, Vine's kicked and push and kill you and do things like that. So, 4 points of damage. Throw down another elf. Still, 2 Goyfs is kind of scary to deal with. Andrew's sitting with 3 cards in hand. Like, we've only seen 1 bolt from him so far, so there's, you know, chances there could be a bolt, there could be terminates, there could be dismembers, there could be fatal pushes, there could be a whole lot of removal spell that he could be hiding in his hand. And now he's in this debate period of, okay, do I attack with both creatures? Do I attack with just 1, leave 1 on blocking duty? You know, how do I go about this? Does he have removal to clear the way? Does he have another Lily available to him? You know, that's true. Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, all that stuff. He's got lots of options available. Many a thing. And so there's one of the pushes coming down. So at this point, Blossoming Defense is going to try to get used to save my untapped Glistener Elf. Liliana Last Hope destroys all Infect creatures except for Inkmoth Nexus. At least in the current iterations. You know, there are those, of course, other ones that run around that might have 2 toughness and stuff like that, but for the most part, most versions of it. And wow, another Goyf comes down. So he basically says, hey, I'll push for 4 damage, drop you down to 9, and then I've got 2 Goyfs still on blocking duty. So you better hope that you get some unblockable, again, some Distortion Strike, some Apostle's Blessing, something to kind of help you out. An Inkmoth Nexus, maybe. And that's one of the things. I used to run a Sylvan Shrine back in the day, just as a one-of, find target Inkmoth, find target Pendelhaven, and it helped me a lot when things were grindy. Things aren't as grindy right now. Yeah, if I'm playing against like a Jund deck and stuff like that, it's pretty good. But against like a human list, alright, against like the Hollow One list, that one Sylvan Shrine is not going to help me as much as getting a pump spell out early. So you have to think about, by running something like that, you're sacrificing one of your pump spells. So again, you can see both of us are really in the tank on both of our turns, really trying to get through and debate on what is the best line of play. How could we be able to optimally push for damage on each of our turns, yet still trying to survive till the following turn, right? And so here's the thing. It's like, if I don't try to push with both creatures here, like I'm just going to die next turn anyway, I'm basically pushing him to say, hey, you better block both of these. Vines kicked, trying to make this guy bigger. Giving him +4/+4, so now he's a 5/5. Become Amends, delving away all these nice, useful cards that you have been using to make your guy bigger, and now we're going to ship away and shrink down a lot of the stuff, right? So I can say, okay, let's get rid of lands, let's get rid of sorceries, let's get rid of creatures, we'll get rid of all those, so your lilies, your land, and your instant will just drop your guy down to a 3/4. So you'll lose 2 Goyfs that way. But you'll, of course, jump back up because you'll get a creature off of it. But at least I have 2 of my elves alive. They kill 2 of your Goyfs. And I'm in a better position to try to kill him next turn, depending on how things work out. Andrew going to fetch. Drop himself down to 16 here. And again, like, if he gets a land, though, he starts really putting the clock on me again. Because he does have that Raging Ravine hiding down below that Overgrown Tomb. Again, there's so many value stuff. Like, if he's running Maelstrom Pulse in his list, I'm hosed here. If he top decks like a Bloodbraid Elf here, like, that really is just extra damage. You know, I could just die from it. Because he could even find like a Bolt or something off that. So there's a lot of stuff that he could draw off of it on his turn that are very live cards that I have to be scared of. Yep, and there we go. So Bloodbraid Elf comes down, Cascade into a Lightning Bolt, says, I'll kill that. So, I do want to say, like, you could look at it and say, okay, he missed lethal, right? He could have pushed and attacked me with everything kind of thing, and bolted me and killed me, right? But it is also 11 o'clock, almost midnight, when we were playing this match, and I know both of us were feeling a little bit tired. Had played, this is the 5th round. It says round 4 because we lost 1 round of coverage kind of thing. So again, this is just sort of the delay tactic. I've got another elf to follow it up. If he doesn't draw a land, could be still in it for a little bit longer. You know, now if he pushes damage, you know, he could still die. So it's this kind of awkward dance now that we're in of just sort of trying to grind each other out value-wise. But, hey, there's the land that he got. So he can fetch it, shock, or fetch, just get a basic, activate Raging Ravine, push for damage here, or just say attack with Goyf and then have that guy in blocking duty. But Dark Confidant's a nice one because now he can say, hey, I get some card advantage off this, I can still push for damage with my Goyf and have a blocker that you have to worry about. Drop down to 1. So the thing about Surgical, like, Surgical's alright as a card, but it doesn't gain you that card advantage. It does not. The one benefit it can do is you get to look at your opponent's hand, right? You can strip away cards that are troublesome. I've run it from time to time, like a one of in my sideboard, but I don't believe that running, 2, 3, 4 is the right option to go for just to replace Gataxian Probe. A couple people have tried some versions of it. I just don't feel that it does enough, right? Because you have to think is that in order to put in a card like Surgical, you have to strip out some of your pump spells in order to do that. Where I would rather be able to threaten a turn 2 kill with a playset of Might of Old Corrosa, a playset of Groundswell, and a playset of Mutagenic, right? Than have the Surgical extractions. I think it's fine if you have the room in your sideboard to put it in. I think it can work out great. I'm personally trying Wild Defiance, a single one. I'm back on that because more people are running Bolt. So that way I can just sort of, outgrind people and sort of do that sort of aspect of it. Alright, so Kolgan's command comes down once I activate it before damage to destroy that, kill me off kind of thing. So game 1 goes to the Jund. Junned him in the face. He got me, guys. So we're going to be going to sideboards. Going to be getting ready to go to game number 2 here. But don't worry, there's still more rounds of coverage after this match ends. So stick with us, guys, as we're getting things going into sideboard phase. Some of the stuff that I have options to do, bring in more creatures. I do have Pulse of Marasa, things like that I can bring in, which I love Pulse. Again, if there's cards that I'm talking about, guys, that you do not know, simply type in !card, whatever the card's name is. And then it will pop up. So Pulse of Marasa costs 3. 2 colorless and a green. For an instant, you get to return a creature or a land card from your graveyard to its owner's hand. It's not just your graveyard. You can do your opponent's graveyard if you really wanted to. But usually you're picking yourself. And then you gain 6 life off of it. So it's basically, hey, I'm going to stick it out, grind out a little bit longer. You've used a lot of removal spell to kill off a lot of my creatures. I can get one of them back. Right? Just sort of that stay into the game. The other options, of course, the other life gain stuff. Kitchen Finks is another one that players like to bring in. You could try to opt for the spell skites if people are running those. Depending on where you're at with your kind of additional creatures and spells that you're hiding in your sideboard kind of thing. Relics are a fine card, especially against a Jund player that is also running Skoos. So it reduces Goyf's power and toughness. It can get rid of the fuel for Scavenging Ooze. So that's not a bad card to be able to bring in this sort of matchup as well. Again, we talked about Surgical. That's not a bad one too if you've got the room in your sideboard to throw a Surgical in there, because you can be able to strip away troublesome removal spells. Right? Reduce that Goyf's power and toughness. Reduce the amount of removal spell that your opponent can draw into. The thing about Jund is it's just a pure value deck, though. So you might be able to say, hey, I'm going to strip away all your Lightning Bolts. I'll strip away all your Fatal Pushes. You're still going to have Kolgan's Command. You're still going to have Abrupt Decays. You're still going to have to deal with Liliana's. Like, there's so much stuff that you have to deal with in this matchup. And I keep talking about how it's an uphill battle. It is winnable, right? You can win this match if you are on the Infect side of things. We did see in that kind of game 1 where I had to fetch up the Dryad Arbor, use that to kind of sack to the Liliana, keep my creature alive. That is something you have to think about and worry about sometimes. That's another way to win against a Jund player too. You can use Noble Hierarchs, you can use Spell Skites, you can use your Dryad Arbors to be able to push for damage that way and deal lethal damage and not just infect damage, right? They are oftentimes fetching and shocking and using their Dark Confidants to get value and just lose life. So that is something you have to kind of look for those lines and alternate win conditions and plans, you know, B, C, D, E, all the way to Z to try to find your way to win in this sort of matchup. So what deck are most people playing right now for Modern? Where are you guys at? You know, I've been rotating between a couple, but I'm back on the Infect train for a little bit, getting ready for regionals. Just curious what other people are rocking out right now. Alright, both players looking through their cards, seeing whether or not they want to keep or not. Looks like we're ready to go. And it's like a mirror of game one. Here's a Noble Hierarch. And the Noble survives. And here's a elf to follow it up. And still have the mana available to try to protect it off of this. Blackcleave Cliffs. Blackcleave Cliffs. So he's one step closer to that Lily. Dark Confidant's going to come down too. So again, that's a nice blocker to get in the way. Can be troublesome because it is a 2/1. So even with the +2 or the +1/+1 off of the Noble, it is something that I have to be aware of. So Blighted Agent's going to come down. Oh, Squibby saying Infect myself. Goblin King, I love the name. It says Goblins. Animaniac 92 saying Burn. So all sorts of fun lists that people are rocking out in Modern right now. Do you guys have a nice diverse meta at your shop as well? I know ours is pretty diverse, and the overall Modern meta is in a pretty nice position too, with the diversity that I'm seeing, at least across the board. Andrew's going to start dealing some damage to himself. I want to say he didn't take any damage off of the Dark Confidant. There's a chance that he did, and I got distracted by chat. Sometimes that happens. It's another important reason to have a co-caster, though, with you. So you can sit there and be able to have one of them pay attention to people's life totals. Not many control players where I play. That can be nice when you're playing Infect, right? When you don't have to worry about as many control players. Our shop tends to rotate for control. Sometimes we have that influx of more control players on a night. Sometimes we don't. Same thing with like Tron. Tron tends to kind of fluctuate in and out. We usually have at least one control player though every single night that we play, and Inquisition's going to get used here. So decision. Do we care about saving our stuff or not? Dropping to 17, getting that breeding pool. Oh, Okay, so Goblin King says that it's different every week where he plays. That's always fun, too, is to have that variety and get a nice bit of practice. Okay, this is the play that I was looking back at. I just was sort of kicking myself over. So I'm going to blame exhaustion for this play. So he did take a point of damage here. I remember that. He revealed a bolt. And so that's why I was dumping my hand for some reason. I don't really, I had 2 cards. So what I should have done here in this position is I should have let him take a card from my hand. He's going to take the vines. Then I'm left with the groundswell. I have a land and I can fetch still and be in an okay spot to have at least 1 pump spell. What I did of just dump my hand was completely wrong, and I was kicking myself right after I did it. Just sort of why did I do that? I'm not playing Gurmag Anglers anymore. I don't need to just throw cards into the graveyard. So sometimes, when you go back after playing a particular deck, you might make certain strategy moves that you wouldn't normally do. So just little tidbits of why you should practice a little bit before you go to a big event, and that's kind of why I'm getting back into the Infect, is to get ready for regionals. But we see Kulgan's Command is going to come down, and you could say discard a card, deal 2 damage, or deal 2 damage and I'm going to get a creature back. I don't believe he has a creature, but... So it looks like he's going to deal 2 damage to that, make me discard, and I'll just say, here's a Might to give him some extra staying power. Raging Green, of course, was thrown down by Andrew, so he's got some kind of follow-up muscle behind just that Dark Confidant. And there's the Pithing Needle, naming Raging Ravine. And there's the Liliana that he reveals. So he'll lose 3, go to 15. So I was in that debate of, okay, go for the Raging Ravine or go for Lily. I have 2 creatures, have that potential to get a 3rd creature. I don't feel that worried about Lily in this position. The Raging Ravine, though, can get out of hand, right? Bloodbraid Elf. And there's a Dark Confidant. So he says, okay, do I care about that? Do I want a second Dark Confidant here? Losing double the life, but I get a lot of card value. No, I don't want to cast it. But now he can push for extra damage, right? He says, hey, here's 3. Drop down to 14. And now it's in this position where, okay, if I don't get ways to make my guy unblockable, he still has that blocker. Maybe he can just take a lot of damage off that, but he got a freebie from that Verdant Catacomb that he revealed, so he won't be taking any damage off that land. Black Cleave Cliffs, Inquisition me. Might to give him +2. No cards in hand. Whoa! Flinging that Bloodbraid Elf. This is basically saying, hey, I'm going to get this Lily out. And now he's got the option, do I Edict here, or do I just plus him, keep her alive a little bit longer? And so yeah, it looks like he's got a land in hand, and he drew off that, ships that away, doesn't care, keeping that Lily alive longer to deal more and be more of a threat. And also not attacking with the Bloodbraid Elf there, too. So, nice lines of play for Andrew, really just sort of switching it up from being aggressive. Now he can just sort of be defensive and say, well, I have this card that can shut you down completely. So I'm going to be now in the stages where I'm just going to protect her. Fetch up the Dryad Arbor. So now I have at least 2 creatures that I can attack with. If I can get some pump spells, maybe we can be able to push in and get rid of that Lily. But it's really hard now that Lily's on the battlefield to keep anything in hand, right? Anything that I get in my hand is really just going to go straight to the graveyard. So I have to just kind of use whatever I get. Pendelhaven helps here because I can pump one of my creatures, push for damage that way, and having the extra toughness is nice. So being a 3/4 is kind of scary because, you know, yeah, he would have to like double block trade off kind of thing, but I don't think he is thinking along that lines, right? But if he's got removal spells, I lose some creatures, so it's like, all right, let's try to keep the elf alive, and we'll push for damage with the Dryad Arbor here. Pendelhaven +1/+2. Exalted Trigger off the Noble becomes a 3/4. So he says, alright, Bloodbraid Elf's going to just jump in the way. Lily will stay around. Dark Confidant. Oh, that was a quick reveal. I don't know what it was. I'm guessing it's something that he took damage for since I'm writing something down. But I could be wrong. Guess we'll have to make sure we have players reveal to the camera off Dark Confidant a little more. Bit dark. Sorry, Julian. Yeah, like, for whatever reason, we're doing our best to try to adjust the lighting. The biggest problem is the walls in the shop are this super lime green colors, and the lights, like the overhead lights that are in there anyway, reflect off the walls something crazy. So we have to have weird lighting for it to try to help it out. We're still looking at better ways to make the lighting a little bit easier for us. Like sometimes certain cards just reflect a little bit more, but we're still doing our best to try to make it viewing better for you guys viewing at home. Alright, pushing for damage again. Pendelhaven pump. Swinging in Exalted Trigger. Well, glad you're liking the content, Julian. That's what, again, Modern Magic Monday's main focus is being educational and entertaining. We do our best to try to educate newer players or even returning players about the different matchups, why players are making the particular plays that they're doing. So if you're ever in this sort of situation and playing these particular decks, you can understand why they're choosing to do the lines that they're doing, what could be different lines that they could have done in those sort of situations, and just tips and tricks to help make everyone better players. The skill level at our shop has increased exponentially by being able to review our games and learn from our mistakes like that. Being able to go back and watch that particular match and go, oh, okay, in this particular position, I should have blocked like this, or I should have sequenced things a little bit differently. AK asking, should Jun just run over Infect? It should just run over Infect. It's really like a 60-40 percent. It could be even higher than that, like 75-15. It's really a difficult matchup for Infect. Infect does have that ability to be able to hit them on turn 2, but the amount of removal, amount of disruption that Jund has, it's really hard. And we're going to return that Lily. Just saying, hey, you're getting a little bit dangerous on your upticks. You're close to being able to ultimate. Let's just go away. Echoing Truth is one of those new ones that I'm trying out in the sideboard. I'm liking it a lot because it has a lot of versatility, especially against like the human list, especially against the Hollow One list. So it's just a nice one that I was able to fit a one of in my board. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like our age group is a lot of people, from age 20 up to 40, right? We have a nice mix of players, but we're a very open and welcome shop to anybody that's interested in learning the game or, playing Magic. So 3 points of damage going to come across. We're going towards Lily again. Putting the damage on. See a fetch coming down. Andrew's getting flooded something hard, but we're not really getting much value behind stuff here. Like, we're getting this beats down, trying to hit the Lily a little bit, but the Pithing Needle naming Raging Ravine is really helping keeping me in there. Where are we located at? So for those that are wondering, if you do exclamation shop, that lets you know. Winchester, VA. So we're right around that border of West Virginia. So like on that western side, the northwestern side of Virginia there. We're located right on Route 81. For those that are kind of on the East Coast, you might be familiar with that route at least. Wow, Andrew has 9 lands out right now, guys. So really, I'm hoping that I can get in and push for damage without taking too much, but that is going to be a problem. So, Ancient Grudge. Destroying my artifacts. So that is something that a lot of Jund players will sideboard in this matchup because it can also serve double duty, being able to, protect against ink moths and stuff like that. So there's Apostle's Blessing getting used because Lily's going to get uptick, and now that he can try to activate Raging Ravine, I had to use this now, lose 2 life, and basically say, okay, protection from red, right? Raging Ravine can activate and attack me only once. I'll at least be able to block one of it, right? And now we're in this race stage where all this mana he's got built up is going to make a difference. But because I'm pro-red, the Noble's just going to absorb all that damage, no problem. I previously was running more Apostle's Blessing. I'm now sitting only at 1. I'd rather have 2 Distortion Strikes than 2 Apostle's Blessings, personally. Because I have other protection spells, and really as an unblockable spell, that extra point of damage can be very relevant. So here's the thing, we can kill off Lily here, but we still have to face down the Raging Ravines, right? And at least we have the Ink Moth. The only thing is, he's got that Ancient Grudge sitting in the graveyard that he can flash back. Looking through the graveyard there, that's not a good sign, because that is kind of giving an indication, hey, there could be a Goyf coming down soon, right? If he's looking through his graveyard to try to determine what he has, that's looking more like, oh, could we be facing down a Goyf? And you see Andrew doing his best to kind of rearrange and adjust his mana base accordingly to make sure he can be able to swing this Raging Ravine at me. So again, Raging Ravine starts out as a 3/3. Every time it attacks, it gets a +1 counter on it. And you can see he is going to be sitting as a 5/5. So I'm going to activate this Ink Moth and try to push for damage. But hey, we're going to get that Raging, or that Ancient Grudge from the graveyard's flashback and get rid of it here. So... dropping down to 6. No blocks. Let's top deck that Become Immense, right? So it is not Goyf. It is our Delirium friend, Grim Flare, coming out. Grim Flare is a pretty sweet card that you see in decks like this. Now, if he's got Delirium, which I was able to get a Relic, Pop Relic, get rid of his Delirium at least, be able to draw a card, try to draw into something more value, but it starts out as a 2/2, it gets +2 as long as there are 4 more cards, you have that Delirium thing. When it attacks and deals combat damage to a player, you get to look at your top 3 and be able to put any number of those cards into your graveyard and the rest back in the top of your library in any order. So here's the Distortion Strike. 1, 2, 3, 4 points of damage. Hoping to get any pump spell to help me out here. But I have to use Noble now to block. Because he's got the Raging Ravine. Now if he draws another land here and double activates Raging Ravine, I'm dead. If he has a removal spell to kill my Noble, I'm dead. Declare attackers. Declare blockers. Go to damage. Drop to 4. So really, it's Become Immense or die, pretty much. So I decided Pendelhaven now, Distortion Strike now. If I get a Might or something like that, he'll be at 7. He'll take 7. You know, not quite lethal, but a lot of damage still. It's really that become a men's or bust here. Burns plays Jund. He is starting out on the Jund train. Like, you know, this was the start of Season 8, so he decided, I'm going to try to Jund him in the face. So, push for 3 damage, and he'll drop to 5. And now I've got a blocker. But now we're in this awkward spot of we're still trying to go for lethal damage off of real damage, not infect. Andrew in the tank. Trying to decide. Again, like he gets any land here. And he's got 2 Raging Ravines and the Grim Flare to kill me. If he gets Delirium somehow, he can kill me. So again, yep, let's get this guy in the way. And so this is one of the reasons why having Pithing Needle on the Raging Ravine delayed this game for so long. It was such a weird match where Andrew's been flooded so much, and really his only main threats have been Raging Ravine. So delaying it and keeping myself in the game for so long has helped out. But even this, he says, you know what? I'm only going to attack with the Raging Ravine. Here's the Lily. Please lose your only creature. Here's an Inkmoth Nexus. So this is just the delay, right? I'm pretty much in that scoop up phase at this point, but because it's on camera, we're just sort of going through the motions. Now, any removal spell, he kills off my Inkmoth, pushes for damage, kills me. If he gets another land, he pushes for damage, kills me, right? We see him get rid of the Thoughtseize here. Activate Raging Ravine. Move to combat. Attacking with both. Have to block to stay alive. We're just going to reduce that by 2. Still will take the 2, and he's pretty close to getting Delirium. And there's the hand. Getting another land does not help keep me in the game. So, again, uphill battle against Jund. It's expected to happen. You know, Jund's a good deck. It's like super value. You know, can't win them all. So, Andrew does end up becoming the first undefeated player for week number 1. We're going to keep going, guys, because there are still more rounds to go because it's a combination of week 1 and week 2. So we're going to hop over and it's going to start flowing into week 2. But I felt pretty good with going with Infect, going 4-1, only losing to Jund. So a great little warm-up, getting ready to go into regionals coming up June 2nd. So let's move right along, guys. We've got a couple more rounds to go. 3 more rounds to go. Hopping over. And again,